Welcome to Danimal's House, everyone. Today I'm going to give you a tour of this screening apparatus that I made to screen 90 yards of topsoil, and eventually I'm going to use that topsoil for lawn leveling. So let's take a look. So here's what we're doing here. I had 90 yards of topsoil that I took out of an area over on the property, and I'm gonna make like an ice rink. There's a video for that, but basically I had all this topsoil, I couldn't decide what to do with it. And I've seen videos out there with people that have lawn services or just kind of, city do-it-yourselfers that want to take care of little bumps that are out in the lawn by going through a process of lawn leveling. So, with that, a lot of times they talk about mixing sand with topsoil. I'm not going there because I'm talking about 90 yards of material here. I live in the country. This isn't a little city lot. I'm talking about a big scale here. So I'm not messing with going to buy sand. This is material that I already had, and I wanted to make it useful. Also, I wanted to get rid of it. So this is basically what I rigged up here to make this all work. So let's take a look at the screener. So in going through and trying to make this and design it, basically what I did is I watched some other people's videos. They had like shaker racks on there, and you got to have some kind of vibration for sure. Otherwise, your stuff is just going to kind of sit there. It's not going to go through unless it's already screened. So what I did is I measured the width. I started there. I knew that my bucket was 61 inches wide on my tractor. I knew that I wanted to have about a 35-degree angle. I thought 45 was a little too much, and 25, 30, I actually kind of tried that, like a preliminary trial, and I just didn't think that that was enough pitch. I wanted that stuff to go pretty aggressively. So I figured and settled on a 35-degree angle. I figured out my angles via a couple of online calculator tools, and I used hardwood here to make a frame. Once I had my frame set up, then I just lined the inside with 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood, and I used that front area right in there. Those are planks, like 2x8 regular planks. And now let's take a look at the front section. So for this top section, basically all I need to do is I need to take 3 screws out on each of the 4 vertical pieces, and I can just take this entire rectangle off. And I put a little piece of trim in here, so that makes that all good. But my thought was I was going to use soft wood, just like regular 2x4 material. And I was going to do that because my staples would go into that easier. It's really hard to staple hardwood, and I wanted the flexibility. In a way that was good, in a way that was bad. Because once, like, I've got a vibratory machine on here. Basically, it's a 12 volt. I don't even really know exactly what you call it. I ordered it from like a place that sells dump truck accessories, and it hooks up to 12 volt and it shakes like nuts. And so basically, when that thing gets going, it creates so much vibration that the screws that I had going into the softwood, actually over time, those screws kind of made bigger holes and started to let go. And one time I was screening at night, and I literally, like, the vibration of all that stuff moving together so quickly and for so long, it actually was getting ready to start on fire. I had smoke coming out of one of the screw connections after having that thing going. So my thought was to go with softwood, and it turned out to be good. I did have to repair it one time, and then I did take the staples out, and because my material, or my fence that I used were 1 inch by 1 inch sections, and it turns out that was really just too thin. The gauge material I used was too thin, and when I dropped some rocks on there, it just kind of busted it up, and so I had to repair it. So using softwood was good for that, but I think if I had to do it again, I would use hardwood. I would bolt it together. Like in these sections over here, I think I would run bolts in there and suck that up tighter with lock nuts. And then I would use much heavier gauge steel. I kind of made do with what I had. I picked up some fencing for 10 bucks on Facebook Marketplace, and I put some heavier fencing underneath here so that when a hard, heavy piece hits this, that it's gonna, kind of absorb some of that shock. But basically, I'm almost all the way done. If we look over here, this is the extent of what I have left. I was able to go through and run everything through the screener. Other things that were too dry or too wet, I had to let dry and spread out. I had to run the rototiller over there a couple times to kind of lessen the size of those pieces. But pretty much this is it. I got a couple wheelbarrows worth of rocks out of this, and this section over here is all the topsoil that we have. We can go take a look at that real quick. We're talking about the equivalent of 6 to 7 dump truck loads worth of topsoil that I was able to get through there. And I had all that wood. I already had that vibratory for the dump trailer insert that I have. And so, it was 10 bucks for the wire and, a couple of packs of staples and screws and, a little bit of time to make it all work. So it worked out pretty well. As far as anchoring this down, I used these little stakes right here are about maybe 18 inches long, and I've got 2 of them in the front, and then I have 2 of them on the side, but the ones on the side are specifically angled backwards. And the whole point of that is when you get pushing here and you want to fill your bucket pretty full, there's a decent amount of pressure pushing on those planks, and if you don't have those things in the ground, then this whole thing wants to lift up, it wants to pull. But once I got that figured out after the first, a couple buckets I took out of there, I revised that plan, and basically it was smooth sailing along the way. Let's take a look at the battery setup that I used for this. So all I did really is I just bought some quick connection extensions, and that's what that vibratory motor had on there. And so I routed that out so that I wouldn't be in the way with any of it. And then I just took the battery, I used an absorbed glass mat 92 amp hour battery, made sure that thing was charged, and I took some connections from there, kind of nutted them on there, tightened them down with nuts and washers, and then I just plugged it in each time. I could get about 3 hours worth of screening done, and I would go back and I would put that battery on the charger, and I would have about 60% of that battery left. So it worked out really nice for me. It's kind of the fall right now, so by the time I got home from work and I got 3 hours worth of screening done, I was about ready to go in anyway. It was dark outside, and then I just put the battery on the charger and good to go. When I was tilling up some of these bigger chunks, I did hit some of the sod beneath, and so it kind of caught here. It's not a perfect process. I think if I had to do this where I would make this permanently again, I think I would take either expanded metal, and because that's stronger and that's very consistent, or I would take wire and I would weave it around a little bit, and I would make it so that I could tighten it again if it got loose. Because you drop some stuff on there, this stuff gets a little bit loose. Either that, or you got to take some steel and you got to fabricate and weld it up. But I wasn't really ready to be that crazy with it, because once I'm done with this, which I am, I'm pretty much moving on, and this is probably going to be a cat house or something like that after this. So I was just kind of wanting to get the work done with what I had for the most part. So that's basically it. We are real happy with how this all turned out. It probably took me about maybe 12 hours or so, 12 to 14 hours of complete time to go through and screen everything. I will say that if you want a recommendation on how to screen topsoil, and the number one thing, like the number one tip I could give you, is your stuff has to be dry. When it is wet, it doesn't want to go through here, it clogs up, and it's just a general mess. So you got to make sure whatever you're doing is dry, and then it's just a matter of scooping it up and dropping it off. So guys, if you liked the episode, don't forget to click for me, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode of Danimal's House.